by His Holiness Shivaram Swami from the Krishna in Vrindavan series. And we are on chapter 10, The Rivers Embrace Murari's Lotus Feet. So yesterday we were hearing a lot about the glories of the Yamuna River, and we left off here where it's saying, great devotees bathe in her pure waters, receive her blessing of pure devotion, and glorify her with wonderful prayers. This is exemplified in the Yamunashtakam of Sri Rupa Goswami below. So that now we're going to sing the whole Yamunashtakam. So it's 8 verses, and then there's 1/9 verse at the end concluding it. So this I'll read the Sanskrit as well, because Rupa Goswami's Sanskrit poetry is just so amazing, as you're going to hear. So Pratur anta kasya patane harini prekshayati papino pipapa sindhu tarini niramaduri birapya shesha chitta bandini mam punatu sarvadara vindu bandhu nandini. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya the sun god, always purify me. She saves those who touch her from going to the realm of her brother Yamaraj. And merely seeing her exonerates even greatly sinful people from the reactions to their sins. The attractiveness of her waters captivates everyone's heart. Hari Varidaya Hari Varidaraya Bimanditoru Kandava Pundarika Mandalodhyaranda Jali Tandava Snana Kama Pamarogra Papa Samparandini Mam Punatu Sarvadara Vinda Bandhu Nandini. Yamuna Devi adorns Indra's massive Kandava forest with her enchanting current, and upon her blossoming white lotuses, birds such as wagtails always dance. Simply desiring to bathe in her crystalline waters pardons one from even the greatest of sins. May that Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya the sun god, always purify me. Shikarabi Mrishta Jantu Durvipaka Mardini Nanda Nandanantaranga Bhakti Pura Vardini Tira Sangamavilashi Mangalanu Bandini Mam Punatu Sarvadara Vinda Bandhu Nandini. Sprinkling a single drop of her water upon oneself frees one from the reaction to even the most heinous crime. She increases the flow of devotion for Nandanandana Sri Krishna within one's heart, and benedicts anyone who simply desires to reside on her banks. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya the sun god, always purify me. Dvipa Chakravala Jushta Sapta Sindhu Bedini Shri Mukunda Nirmitoru Divya Keli Vedini Kanti Kandali Virindra Nila Vrinda Nindini Mam Punatu Sarvadara Vinda Bandhu Nandini. Yamuna Devi is so inconceivably powerful that although she flows through the 7 oceans which surround the earth's 7 giant islands, she never merges into them as ordinary rivers do. Being an intimate witness to Sri Krishna's wonderful pastimes, she makes those pastimes arise in the hearts of those who take shelter of her. Her dark, shimmering beauty defeats even that of a precious blue sapphire. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya the sun god, always purify me. Maturena mandalena charanabhimandita prema nadha vaishnavadva vardhanaya pandita urmidor vilasa padmanabha padavandini mam punatu sarvadara vinda bandhu nandini. Ornamented by the supremely enchanting land of Mathura Mandala, Yamuna Devi inspires spontaneous devotion in the hearts of the loving Vaishnavas who bathe in her waters. With her waves, which are like playful arms, she worships Sri Krishna's lotus feet. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya the sun god, always purify me. Ramyatira Rambamana Gokadamba Bhushita Divya Ganda Bhakkadamba Pushparaji Rushita Nanda Sunu Bhakta Sangha Sangamabhinandini Mampunatu Sarvadara Vinda Bandhu Nandini. Yamuna Devi's supremely attractive banks are further beautified by the celestial fragrance emanating from the flowers of the kadamba trees which line them, and by the presence of mooing cows. She is especially delighted when Nanda Lala's devotees assemble on those banks. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. Pula Paksha Malikaksha Hamsa Laksha Kujita Bhakti Vidha Deva Siddha Kinarali Pujita Tira Ganda Vaha Ganda Janma Bandharandini Mampunatu Sarvadara Vinda Bandhu Nandini. Hundreds and thousands of swans glide along the waters of Yamuna Devi, who is worshipable to the demigods, siddhas, kinnaras, and humans whose hearts are dedicated to the service of Sri Hari. Anyone who is touched by her gentle breezes is released from the cycle of birth and death. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. Chidvilasavari pura bhurbhuvaswar apini Kirti tapi durmadaru papa marma tapini Ballavendra nandanangaraja banga gandini Mampunatu sarvadara vinda bandhu nandini. Yamuni Devi distributes transcendental knowledge throughout the three worlds known as Bhu, Bhuva, and Swa as she flows through them, and singing her glories burns to ashes the reactions of even the greatest of sins. She has become supremely fragrant due to the sandal paste from Sri Krishna's body melting in her waters as he enjoys his water sports. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya the sun god, always purify me. And here's the last verse. Tushta buddhir ashtakena nirmalormi cheshtitam Tvamanena bhanuputri sarvadeva veshtitam Yastaviti vada yasva sarva papa mochene Bhakti puram asya devi pundarika lochene. Hey Surya Putri, Devi, O Yamuna, whose forceful waves are so purifying and who is surrounded by all the demigods, please increase the current of bhakti for the lotus-eyed Sri Krishna, he who liberates people from their sins, of that contented, intelligent person who recites this prayer. This is my supplication at your lotus feet. So that's the blessing of Srila Rupa Goswami, who composed this prayer, that whoever recites this prayer, their bhakti, the current of their bhakti for Krishna increases. Jai. So hopefully that will happen for me and for all of those who listen to it. So now we're moving to the next section. Sitting under a great banyan tree, surrounded by all the illustrious thinkers of the universe, Shukadeva Goswami turned his gaze from his dear disciple Maharaj Parikshit and looked with great feeling toward the Yamuna River flowing nearby. It was the month of Kartik, and the thought of the tranquil river flowing through Hastinapur to Vrindavan stimulated the ecstasy of that celebrated sage. As he continued to perceive the pastimes of Vraj within his heart, his eyes welled with tears. As the sound of the flute rolled across the glossy waters of the Yamuna, it became especially beautiful by contact with the river, very cooling, smooth, and comforting. A group of gopis who had gone to collect water stood silently at the river's edge, bathing in the song of Sri Krishna's flute, when one of them said, now this is a verse 10, 21, 15, Nadyas tadatat upadarya mukunda gitam avarta lakshitamano bhavabhagna vegaha alinganasta gitam urmi bhajar murarer Grinanti pada yugalam kamalopaharaha. When the rivers hear the flute song of Krishna, their minds begin to desire him, and thus the flow of their current is broken and their waters are agitated, moving around in whirlpools. Then with the arms of their waves, the rivers embrace Murari's lotus feet, and holding on to them, present offerings of lotus flowers. This is the verse of which this whole chapter is based. Srila Prabhupada explained, even the river Yamuna, being desirous to embrace the lotus feet of Krishna after hearing the transcendental vibration of his flute, broke her fierce waves to flow very nicely with lotus flowers in her hands, just to present flowers to Mukunda with deep feeling. Wandering and wandering through the forest of Vrindavan, ever absorbed in play, dance, and song, Sri Krishna, accompanied by Balaram, the cowherd boys and the cows, eventually reached the beautiful banks of the river Yamuna. While the cowherd boys made the cows drink the sweet water, Krishna and Madhumangala, walking arm in arm along the riverbank, enjoyed the cooling aromatic breezes from the Yamuna. Lotus-eyed Sri Krishna saw the Yamuna to be like the long black braid of his beloved Radhika. The many lotus flowers in the Yamuna, like the small jasmine flowers she braids into her hair. The swans gliding here and there like the decorative string of pearls entwined in her tresses. The small whirlpools within the Yamuna like the curly locks that ornament her forehead, and the free-flowing current within her banks like the swaying of her braids against her back. As Sri Krishna was absorbed in such pleasant thoughts, the two boys eventually came to Nandagat, where the servants of Varuna had arrested Nanda Maharaj. Here, Sri Hari remembered how, after fasting and worshipping Lord Janardana on the Ekadasi day, his dear father entered the Yamuna during an inauspicious time, to be carried away by some foolish servant of Varuna. When the associates of Nanda Baba called out the names of Rama and Krishna, Sri Hari had immediately appeared, and along with Baladev entered deep within the water. Reaching the ocean capital of Varuna, known as Vibhavari, Govinda fearlessly entered the court of Varuna and reclaimed his father without much ado. Sri Krishna smiled sweetly, recalling the embarrassment of the deity of water, who immediately appeased him with many prayers and gifts, and offered him his own throne as a sign of submission. Not since Sri Ram gazed in fiery anger over the ocean to Lanka had Varuna experienced such humiliation at the hands of a human, demon, or demigod. When Nanda Maharaj saw the humility of Varuna, he became astonished due to paternal love, and after relating the incident to his associates, they concluded Sri Krishna must be the supreme lord of all gods. While the Brajavasi men were speaking in such a high philosophical way, Govinda became compassionate upon them, and revealing the spiritual planet of Goloka, he assured his kinsmen of this most excellent of destinations in their next births. In the previous verse, beginning with the words Prayo Batamba Vihaga Munayo Vanesmin, the bewilderment of birds was described as being Sarva Mohanatva. Now, while walking very close to the Yamuna's bank, Sri Krishna poured the nectar of divine love into the holes of his flute through his ruby-colored lips and inspired the gopis to speak of the unconscious rivers of Vrindavan, who, being Nari Jati, of the same female class as they, embraced his lotus feet and feel greater embarrassment than the Muni birds. One gopi, a girlfriend of Srimati Radharani, who is Prodha, senior by age and experience, exclaimed, "What to speak of conscious living entities? Just see the Saubhagya, the good fortune of unconscious bodies of water like the Kalindi and Manasi Ganga. Although the sound of the flute is a source of embarrassment for everyone, Tat Parama Mohanatva, it is especially so for females like the gopis and the rivers of Raj." Taking a golden pot ornamented with many valuable gems from her head and placing it on the ground before her, another gopi, decorated with great affection for Govinda, said, "Hey Saki, the flow of the river is by nature Vegavan, very powerful, and carries all things away with it. But just see, as that current attentively hears the approaching sound of the flute, it loses its steadiness and becomes broken by lust." Following her direction, all the gopis looked towards the Yamuna and observed in amazement how the vibration of the flute caused it to stop flowing. Standing motionless like a great sheet of ice, the Kalindi became transfixed, appearing like a lake unwilling to move by even a hair's breadth. In its supreme happiness, instead of heading towards the sea, its current became stationary, and it began to spin around in many whirlpools and eddies that represented its thick Gada Bhav or Mano Bhav. Expressing amusement with her hand to her mouth, the same gopi continued, "What is this manobhav which causes such distress to Yamuna Devi? Dear friends, that same lust, kama, which makes the gopis cast away their shyness, steadiness, and patience, has eaten its way into the waters of the river and caused an obstruction to its natural seaward course. Standing together like beautiful reeds on the shore, bending in the wind of their amazement, the gopis looked at the great transformation the Venugita brought about in the rivers of Vrindavan. Another gopi, already bewildered by the flute itself, and now further mystified by the inertia of the Yamuna, spoke with great curiosity. Saki, how do you understand the influence of this manobhav within the waters of the river? Raising her expressive hands, her friend replied, the many broken streams and deep twirling whirlpools are the symptoms of the ecstatic love Yamuna Devi and the other rivers exhibit. Dear friend, do not doubt this. The bodily beauty of Sri Krishna is like a wave in the ocean of eternal youth, to which all the rivers of Raj flow. In that great ocean are the whirlpools of awakening ecstatic love and the random flow of transitory sub-ecstasies which have affected these rivers so. Considering the position of the gopis to be similar to that of the rivers, she then expressed their feelings with great humility. The vibration of Sri Krishna's flute is like a whirlwind, and the flickering minds of the gopis are like straws and dry leaves. After they fall down in the whirlwind, they never rise again, but remain eternally at his lotus feet. So she's comparing the gopis, the river, the whirlpools of Yamuna and the other rivers of Raj when they hear Krishna's flute, to the minds of the gopis when they hear Krishna's flute. Then it creates a whirlwind and their minds become like straws and leaves spinning around in that whirlwind. Whispers of sadhu, sadhu rolled out over the expanse of water, echoing like the sweet sound of many waterfowl. Another softly spoken girl, her smile sweetened by the camphor of love for Sri Krishna, said, just behold the greediness of this river. In its great happiness, it has not only stopped flowing, but the water which has long passed this area is returning to hear the vibration of the flute and make offerings of love to Murari. As she spoke, the gopis observed the Yamuna's water level rising and the waters from downstream retracing their course to be nearer to Krishna. So the water that was going downstream stopped, and then the water that had already passed that point started flowing upstream. So now the water is like coming from both sides and not going anywhere. As she spoke, the gopis observed the Yamuna's water level rising and the waters from downstream retracing their course to be nearer to Krishna. The husband of the rivers is the ocean, and all chaste women find their place at the shelter of their own spouse. But just see how, returning from their ocean husband, the rivers bring divine presentations of flower, pearls, and coral to offer at Sri Krishna's lotus feet. This is also like the gopis, because if the ocean is the husband, then the river is the wife, and the rivers should be flowing towards the husband. But the rivers are leaving the direction of going opposite. They're going away from the husband, and they're going to Krishna in the same way that the gopis abandon their husbands and run to Krishna. Putting her hands forward as if to touch Govinda's lotus feet, one young girl said, the waves of the rivers are its hands, and their offerings of love are the many-colored lotus flowers floating on its waters. Krishna is now stagitam, stationary, and standing in one spot on the bank of the Yamuna. He feels great happiness as the rivers embrace his lotus feet in their liquid palms. The gopis leaned forward, looking down the waterfront to catch a glimpse of Sri Krishna's lotus feet being embraced by the river, their colorful saris billowing in the wind. Aside from offerings of aromatic flowers, Sugandha Kamala, the rivers offer their own sweet waters, Kamala, washing the lotus feet of Mukunda, Pada Kamala, which are like the most splendid pair of blue lotuses, Nila Kamala. Enlivened by the vision of their own love-anointed eyes, another gopi said, look there, with great love and devotion, the personified river offers its entire storehouse of treasures, Kamala, in addition to an unlimited variety of lotuses, Kamala, to Sri Hari. Envisaging the beautiful scene, another gopi said, "The rivers have heard the bewildering song of the flute and have renounced flowing to their husbands. With their long hands, which are their waves, they have adorned themselves with jewels, crowns, and divine decorations. Mani Motika Divyahara. And their attire now rivals the beauty of Kamala, the goddess of fortune. Because the rivers are inhabitants of Vrindavan, they are very dear to Murari, and they now tightly hold his lotus feet to their breasts." Just looking into, oh yeah, back in the verse, because it mentions Kamala, and then Shivram Swami is giving different ways that Kamala could be interpreted, whether it's Sugandha Kamala, meaning the aromatic flowers, or Pada Kamala, the lotus feet of Krishna, or Nila Kamala, the blue lotuses that his feet resemble. Or Kamala can mean treasures, or, yeah, so he's giving different meanings. Okay, right. Srila Sanatana Goswami gives a detailed explanation why the gopis refer to Krishna as Murari, the killer of the demon Mura. The Brihad Vamana Purana tells the story of the demon called Mura, who received a boon from Lord Shiva to be able to kill anyone merely by touching his chest with his hand. The demigods were always in great fear of Murasura, and finally they approached Lord Narayan to bring an end to their misery by killing him. For the pleasure of his devotees, the Lord destroyed the demon after a long battle. At first glance, the gopis' use of the word Murari in Alingana Stagitam Urma Bhujar Murari appears to refer to Sri Krishna in his opulent Vilas expansion as Lord Narayan. However, this would indicate a mood that is both inconsistent and at conflict with the gopis' general attitude of loving attachment to Govinda as the human cowherd son of Nanda Maharaj, which is most prominent in Vraj. This paradox is resolved by verse 10:18, where Gargamuni said, "Tasman nandat majo yamte Narayana samogunai," or "Your son is as good as Narayan." The key words are "as good as." The inhabitants of Vraj do not know Sri Krishna to be Narayan due to the intensity of their love, but they do know that by some good fortune he is as powerful as Narayan, and therefore they call him Murari as well. Watching the rivers approach Sri Hari, the gopis said, "Previously Sri Krishna killed the Mura demon for the pleasure of his devotees and brought happiness to the planets of the demigods. Having given our hearts to him for eternity, we too are his devoted maidservants, and as in times past, we deserve to be protected from the influence of Cupid. Tata asmakam, O Govinda, that lust which is rising in our hearts, which is scorching our bodies and choking our words, kindly destroy it." Lamenting their situation and wringing their hands, their lotus faces downcast, they said, "Although Sri Krishna is kind to the rivers, he neglects us and will not relieve this burning poison in our hearts. Thus the ocean of our misfortune knows no shores." The gopis always appreciate the good fortune of those living entities who are engaged in the service of lotus-eyed Krishna. When absorbed in such meditations, they feel relief from their own separation, vipralamba bhav, and share the happiness of the cows, the birds, or the rivers of Vrindavan. Although happy by such thoughts, the reality of their own condition as one divorced from his transcendental association invariably surfaces within their minds, and at once they begin to lament their own misfortune. This is the recurring pathos of Venu Gita. So yeah, Venu Gita is the gopis. The gopis are singing about Krishna's flute and how it affects everyone. So what he's saying here is interesting, is that when they hear Krishna's flute, their separation becomes overwhelming. Like they just want to run there and be with Krishna. But they can't always do that. So the way that they're giving themselves relief from the pain of separation is by talking about how all the different other living entities of Vrindavan are transformed by Krishna's flute. So it says that, yeah, they appreciate the good fortune of those living entities who are engaged in the service of Krishna. And while they think about the service of others, they feel relief from their own separation. Yeah, because they don't have a single shred of envy. So envy means, oh, someone else is enjoying Krishna's association. What about me? They shouldn't be enjoying. I should be enjoying more, or to, take them away and bring me in kind of mood. But saying that when they meditate on the service of the cows and the birds and the rivers of Vrindavan to Krishna, then they share the happiness of those devotees they share the happiness of the cows and the birds and the rivers. So they can temporarily forget their own pain by thinking of the happiness of those devotees who are enjoying Krishna in whatever way they're enjoying with Krishna. Having heard the flute song of Mukunda and having witnessed the good fortune of Vrindavan's rivers, the gopis felt their ever-present kama surge forward. Recognizing that Murari would not relieve the burning in their own hearts, they once again became despondent and condemned their situation as being inferior to that of the rivers. Said one lotus-eyed young lady, "The rivers do not flow to their husband, the ocean, but remain happily in Vrindavan, embracing the feet of Hari. Devoid of any feelings of animosity, the great Samudra glorifies Sri Krishna with the loud clapping of waves and praises the good fortune of his wives with words like sadhu, sadhu, vayantu durbhaga eva. But we are greatly unfortunate, for our husbands cannot share the magnanimity of the great seas, and they constantly condemn our love for Mukunda. How sad is our sorry plight." Another gopi, feeling angry at her predicament, furrowed her eyebrows and exclaimed, "The swabhava of the rivers, which is to ever flow downstream, has today been usurped by the agency of the flute. The waters of the Yamuna have become immovable, representing her solid determination to achieve Sri Krishna's loving association. But just see, Vayantu, we gopis, considered by society to be more intelligent than the rivers, remain clutching the insignificant straws of our conditioned nature, hesitating to cast off the shackles of our kula, lajya, and shila. What fools are we?" They're saying that the Yamuna water is so determined that it just nothing can stop it from going to Krishna, whereas the gopis are sometimes stopped by their families, by their shyness. Yeah. The distinct symptoms of vishada, lamentation, glani, depression, and dainya, humility, fought each other for supremacy over the gopis' minds. You can see their humility. They're thinking these rivers are superior to us, more fortunate than us. They have more love for Krishna than us. Understanding that combat amongst themselves would compromise their own objective, they made a truce and in unison assailed the unprotected gopis, who naturally began to totter under the effect of an allied assault. So these ecstatic symptoms are teaming up together to attack the gopis. Expressing their despondency, a gopi dressed in a red bordered sari said, "The waters of the river are prone to move in various ways due to their chanchala bhav, flickering nature. By embracing Murari's feet, they have overcome this unsteady position and have become fixed in good fortune. Look around you, my dear friends, ever submerged in our household duties, distracted by the many demands of our husbands, and in fear of the chastisement of superiors, we continue to live ever oblivious to the influence of the flute." Saying we're so distracted by other things that we're oblivious to Krishna's flute. Right. "Our best dresses are of no value. Our family jewelry is like straw, and our inherited decorations are unattractive without the merciful glance of Sri Krishna. Worst of all, while others appreciate our beauty, manners, and charm, of what value are such gifts if he for whom they are conceived does not value them? Vakshastana Adishu, we cannot hold even one of his soft pinkish lotus feet, which regularly walk the thorny paths of Raj, to our breasts. Now tell me, dear friends, of what use is such a life?" The gopis were standing by the crystalline beach of the Yamuna's shore, their decorative water jugs sitting complacently by their feet. They had all come for the purpose of collecting water for some household duty, and now, with a glance of contempt, they all turned their backs on the pots, seeing them as the fatal tie to family obligations and representative of all their misfortune. The sadness in their hearts rose to their faces and then appeared as a cascade of tears from their doe-like eyes. Their tears flowed down their lovely cheeks onto the sand, and mixing with the stagnant water of the Yamuna, caused a veritable flooding of its banks. Oh. Although the gopis exhibited great attachment to Sri Krishna in each other's presence, their mood of concealment was protected by the arrangement of Yogamaya. Thus, no suspicion arose regarding each other's affection for the Prince of Raj. Controlling her own unhappiness, the senior gopi, who had spoken earlier, struggled to subdue the pathetic mood of the conversation. To console the others and secure the general humor of their chat, she placed her arm around the two gopis nearest her and said very sweetly, "The good fortune of the rivers is not exclusive, but is often shared by the ladies of Rajdham. O Gopi Sundari Gana, do you not remember how, by visiting Durvasa Muni at a distance not far from here, you all received immeasurable good fortune?" Hearing the mention of their good fortune, the despondent gopis began to look here and there, aware that they had publicly sunk into the quicksand of attachment to Sri Krishna, and concerned that their expressions of love were not understood by each other. Pointing in a northerly direction, her veil draping her vine-like arms, the same gopi continued, "There's Panigat, where the gopis brought many sweets and savories cooked in ghee as an offering to the great sage Durvasa, who had taken residence on the far side of the Yamuna. Do you not remember how, baffled by the deep water, we were unable to make a plan to cross the river? There was no boat, no bridge, and yet neglecting our guest would surely ignite the sage's displeasure and bring misfortune upon the Vrajavasis." The remembrance of Sri Krishna's pastimes was like a spark that ignited the wick of the gopis' hope, thus dissipating their melancholy, which was like a vast darkness with no visible end. Continuing her narration, the gopi said, "At that time, absorbed in tending his cows and dressed in a most alluring manner, making a show of his natural opulences, and eyeing the vast array of preparations held by the gopis, Sri Krishna appeared along with his many cowherd boyfriends. With a very sweet voice, he addressed the gopis, saying, 'Hey, Chatura Gopi Gana, O most clever gopis, for what subversive reason do you all assemble here on the banks of the Yamuna, gazing at the other shore as if it were the property of your good husbands?'" I'm going to have to stop here, right in the middle of the story, because it's time. And we shall finish this tomorrow to find out what happens when Krishna meets the gopis on their way to deliver some sweets and savories cooked in ghee to Durvasa Muni. All right, thank you for joining us. Venu Gita Ki Jai, the rivers of Raj embracing Murari's lotus feet. Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.